Hello and welcome to Oceanic Global's Climate Week celebration. My name is Gaelin Rosenwaks. I am an explorer and marine scientist, and I am an ambassador for Oceanic Global. I'm very excited to be with you this afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world, to talk about climate and some of the important topics that our planet is facing right now. I'm going to add in Island Natalie, a travel journalist, and we're going to have a conversation about what we've witnessed around the world in all of our travels and how we've seen and witnessed climate change firsthand. So let me invite Island Natalie to join, and she should be joining us very shortly. And we will, we're connecting. Fantastic. Hello, Natalie.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm very excited to be having this conversation with you in celebration of Climate Week.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, so if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, and for anybody who is just joining us, my name is Gaelin Rosenwaks at Gaelin Go Explore on Instagram. And I'm being joined by another Oceanic Global Ambassador, Natalie Lefevre at Island Natalie. And we're going to be talking about what we've witnessed with climate around the world. Handing over to you, Natalie.
Okay, thanks. So, hi, you guys. I'm Natalie, and my travel profile is Island Natalie. I was born in the Seychelles Islands, so I am an island girl. I got to experience growing up on the beautiful Indian Ocean as a child and walking out when there was low tide, connecting with the animals and seeing what would end up in these little pools. I'm also half German and started my travel blog, and through that I've traveled to so many remote places in Mexico, in Indonesia, Komodo Islands, Hawaii, and like Gaelin said, I've experienced and witnessed a lot of changes. I remember in the Seychelles there was this one spot where they would have glass-bottom boat rides, and you can see the destruction of our coral reefs, not only by tourism, but as well as the El Nino and the global warming started. There was a beautiful place called Coco Island, and all the reefs were dead. And it just really broke my heart to come back and see that. And over the years, now it's slowly growing back. And as some of you guys know, these reefs are animals. So they need a lot to be able to survive. As you know, also the acidity of the water is changing, the impact of overfishing and pollution, which has also caused mercury in our fish. I went to the Maldives last November, and I'm very, very well known to the Indian Ocean and the monsoon seasons. But we were there for 4 weeks, and literally it was raining all the time, and November is supposed to be dry season. And so I started noticing this, and I would ask every GM, since we were moving hotels quite a bit, and the skippers of the boats, I asked them, what have you personally witnessed? Have you noticed this change? Because I seriously just first started noticing it with climate change there. And everyone agreed with me, and I thought, okay, this is a motivation now to create awareness within my audience and give value to them and really kind of start promoting the fact that this is real. And, Mother Earth needs help from people like us to create this awareness and get the momentum going. So I created a climate change video, and I do a lot of videos about awareness of, when you go visit a location, taking the shells off the beach. Those are little homes for animals. So you're ruining the environment and so to just be mindful as you're traveling of these things. Also, I used to live in Houston, Texas. So we're in Hurricane Alley. And I've witnessed and experienced, thank goodness I've never really been there for hurricanes because I always leave and used to take my cat with me. But last year we were heavily impacted. You can definitely tell that the size of the hurricanes is growing over the years, the intensity and the size. I saw some kind of map on that once, like a seismic graph, and there is a clear change very gradually, but definitely within the last couple of years that I've personally witnessed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think hurricane season at one point, just I think last week, we had 5 named storms in the Atlantic Basin and Gulf of Mexico, which was pretty intense. And they're all bigger storms now, and they're just, stacking up on top of each other. I live on the east coast of the U.S., and we definitely are seeing more and more hurricanes, and it's something that we're thinking about a lot more. And certainly Hurricane Sandy that flooded all of lower Manhattan and Brooklyn, and sea level rise contributing to the destruction of the hurricanes is a really big issue that we've all witnessed firsthand. I think that,
and it's not normal for your area at all. That was huge when that happened. I remember.
Yeah, no, Hurricane Sandy was crazy because it was just, no one's expecting a storm like that around here. To be so devastating. Of course, all of the factors aligned where, we've got the high tide, the extreme high tide, and it hit at high tide. And that's why there was such extreme flooding. But with sea level rise, lower Manhattan will be underwater if nothing changes. And that's pretty terrifying if you think about it. And I don't think that we're going to, see something very different. And that hits very close to home. And then obviously in our travels, and I did a project in Seychelles recently, and it was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And so to hear those stories, and certainly I know yeah, it was so beautiful. And I know they had a huge bleaching event a number of years ago, but I think they're protecting more. And I think that's what's happening across the world. Hopefully corals can be more and more resilient. But what we're seeing is, and I recently did a project in Palau on corals, and corals are the largest living ecosystem on the planet, largest living organism on the planet. And, we want to keep them in the world, in the ocean forever, but we're seeing tremendous declines because of bleaching, because of the warming and acidity. I think Oceanic Global has done a really great job with their infographics this week, talking about, really boiling down to the problems in a very concise way and what we can do as individuals. But having witnessed it all firsthand, I think it really hits home in, a much greater way for the two of us and anybody who travels. And it's how do we tell those stories so that everybody can connect, And we also have to remember that there is some hope and that we can do things to protect. I don't want to be all gloom and doom as we're talking about these terrible things happening to our planet. But, I think we can talk about good things. And the project I'm working on in Palau is a good thing, where they've actually found corals that will be resistant to climate change or warming and increased acidity. So there are glimmers of hope within everything. So
I would add on to that note. So I worked with Nature Seychelles, the organization that is about ocean conservation, and they have a private island, and they also found a super coral. So it had survived 1 or 2 bleachings, and they're taking those, and I dove the site, and we cleaned with the toothbrush these super coral, and just dangling in the middle of the water there. And so there is hope. And then there's also, I met this guy, Aki from Coral Live, and they have a marine accretion technology project in Frigate Private Island, which I think, Gaelin, you should really come visit. I think you would.
I do too. Let's make that happen.
We need to plan that.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting seeing how by these small vibrations that they can bring these coral nurseries back to life much faster, at a faster rate. So there's a lot we can do. And of course, beach cleanups and being mindful and thinking from the get-go before you even bring your trash to the oceans, and taking public transportation when you can, or walking if you can, instead of everything that we do kind of contributes in a small way. And sometimes you think, oh, it's just me, it's just one person, it won't matter. But if everybody has that way of thinking, imagine how many millions of people, affect then the earth in that capacity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We all have to take an active role in it. We can't just wait for big government or anything. There's no silver bullet to this. And on an individual basis and on a community basis and on a global basis, we need to think about the earth as our neighbor and the ocean as our neighbor to really, care about each other. And if we come together as a whole, I think we can make a difference. I was just looking at some of the questions because I think we should, get everybody involved in this. And Mermaid Esmeralda, which I think that Instagram handle is awesome, says, have you gone to see the worst impacted places in person? And what is the most severe cases you have seen recently? So, Natalie, I don't know if you want to start. I know that for me.
I mean, I Komodo Islands. Komodo is still quite isolated. Not a lot of people come there, not a lot of tourism. There's no cruise liners. They've just built a port for cruise ships to come. So I'm already worried about what's going on there, and their climate is so diverse. I mean, you can see some islands with blue rocks. The next one is red. I mean, such diverse, geology. And there was so much plastic pollution on the beaches that I actually didn't want to film it because I didn't want to do like a negative injustice. But a lot what I've seen is the rains, really the rains, the change of the rains. Even in Germany, we never had it this warm for that long. We don't, like I've gone to Austria to a certain hotel I used to go to, the glacier or the snow on the top. Like we literally looked at a picture from 10 years ago and looked at it from last summer. And there's no snow anymore, So, and even the going skiing, I mean, it's completely changed. There was always a joke 10, 15 years ago that they'll be able to grow oranges in Germany. And I think we're going in that direction.
Yeah, no. And for me, it's one picture that I always think of. I worked a lot in the Arctic. And there's this one picture where I'm standing on the ice off of the icebreaker that we were working on. And it was about 10 years ago that I was on this expedition. And now that area has not been covered in ice. So now it's completely open water year round. And that's a pretty short time. And I was standing on the ice. It was about a foot thick. And, I'm on this huge ship and we're breaking through the ice the whole way. And I think that really drives it home in a lot of ways. That shouldn't be, that ice is important to that ecosystem. And that ice is no longer there. So what's happening? And that project was about investigating what the sea ice role is in the ecosystem. But I think it's just so, upsetting to see that happening worldwide on that level. And also with the rains, like you said, I was recently in Dominica for my current project on sperm whales. And this year, fortunately, we had better weather. But the year before, rainy season should end November 1st. And we had nonstop solid rain the whole week that we were there, to the point where there were flash floods. And it was quite terrifying. And that was because they had been hit by a huge hurricane that they hadn't seen in years. And then they had no vegetation in the hills, so that all of that runoff just kind of swooshed down the river basins. It was quite terrifying. So,
yeah, that could be scary. That reminds me of the story in Houston when the first hurricane hit, and it was quite heavy, and then it went back out. And so instead of having the time for the water to run down and escape and go where the channels it needs to, the second one came back even faster. So we didn't have time to catch up, and then there was so much damage. It was one of the biggest catastrophes. And I don't know also if you remember in New Orleans when the dam was overrun and then everything overflooded. And then the worst thing is these people have to come back, and a lot of the insurance companies didn't pay for the flooding. So nobody ever thought that would really be an issue. So a lot of people lost a lot, of their savings, their life savings, and have to struggle because of it as well, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one thing. Yes.
And the animals that got out, the animals that need to survive, the horses, the crocodiles were let loose. They saw crocodiles in the, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that creates all sorts of other problems, right? Because they have invasive species and then other animals that just have to be left behind, which is another big problem because people aren't thinking about it. And hopefully now, though, we are thinking about all of these things. And I think that's why we're having this conversation. And, so many great organizations are working on sort of knowledge, to increase knowledge about all of this. So what can we do to have less of an effect moving forward? Or how can we mitigate all of these crazy disasters? And I know with sea level rise, we're seeing it everywhere. And I think it's pretty scary, because all of these other natural disasters are made so much worse because of sea level rise. And that's because of the warming and the melting glaciers and icebergs and things. So I'm just going to look at one of these questions. And if I've missed any questions that are coming through, please just send them again because the feed goes quite fast. So I'm doing my best to keep up. It says, can you share from a scientific perspective some of these changes, species migrations, and how this predicts what the future may look like? So I think that from a scientific perspective, and actually anybody who's noticing changes across the board, I'm sure Natalie's noticed it, especially being so tuned into living in islands, it's going to be different, and I think what science is really doing is trying to learn what these changes are going to do, whether they may not all be completely negative either. I think everybody isn't going to complain about a warmer summer necessarily, but when it starts getting into the hurricanes and things, then we're having trouble. We're catching tropical fish here where I live, where we shouldn't be catching them. So I live in the northeast of the U.S., and somebody caught a cobia here the other day while they were fishing, and that shouldn't be in these far northern waters, and it was a large fish. So we're seeing these migratory movements of the fish, and it's just about adapting. I guess the biggest problem is really in the Arctic, where those fish that really need, or those whales and things that need that super cold water, there won't be that cold water to go to. So we're seeing behavioral changes and trying to understand what's going to happen, but no one really will know because nature is so variable. But the beauty of it is that nature is also very resilient. As you were saying, Natalie, you were saying about the corals and the super coral, and I certainly witnessed that in Palau too. But how we can really learn about all of these really cool things, so that we will know everything will look different, perhaps, but hopefully it won't be so catastrophic. Because I try to be optimistic, and I'm sure, Natalie, you try to be optimistic as well. Another question that's come up a couple of times now is, you work in the travel industry, and traveling has, a large carbon footprint. Yeah. And what do you think, as on the travel side, how can we be more responsible travelers? And, how do you see sort of the travel industry changing going forward to sort of mitigate or help in this, this battle against climate change?
Well, I definitely think that we're moving in the direction of sustainable travel, and people are becoming more aware of their carbon footprint. And a lot of tourism boards are, joining the momentum and the wave about being, carbon free at some point, or the Seychelles, for example, dedicating a certain area to marine protection. So now their goal is 30% marine protection, which, by the way, they've done that. And there are indexes on this, which you can see at Inspiring Positive Travel. And then there's companies like Gold Standard, which is an affiliate of the WWF, that gives you carbon credits so that you can offset your negative impact, and you can also have your company properly analyzed and have it more efficiently functioning. I think that everybody kind of has to do their part. I think, we need to also start with the plastic pollution problem, and that, where in the past we used to just hand out a plastic straw. First of all, that should not be an assumption. The person should have to choose if they want a plastic straw. Don't hand it over. Let's not have too much wastage, because where does it end up? I think that, we have to be extremely mindful of the fact that we have 30 billion masks in production and growing due to COVID, as well as 500 million gloves or something like that. And the numbers are increasing. It just breaks my heart when I see it on the street and people just toss it around, and most of it is getting into our oceans. And that, I think that we all have to kind of consider now, are you going to travel? Take public transportation, try to go on group trips. Maybe you're willing to travel a little less to have quality trips rather than the quantity of trips that we used to have before, and become less wasteful in the way we consume. And there are alternatives, like finding your favorite travel blogger, me. No, I'm just kidding. And follow her, or Inspiration to Islands. There's different ways you can choose to escape or experience, and value these moments more, which I think we weren't doing as much before. I love what you said, that marine life is kind of changing in nature. We had, during the lockdown, I was in the Seychelles at home with my mother, and we have several atolls of islands, and near the drop-off at Alphonse Island, we had the first sighting ever of killer whales. They are supposed to be old waters. It was a pod of 5 of them. And all of us on the island, when we heard the videos and, we all got excited because we're like, oh my God, they visited us, But then I was like, why are they in our waters? We are 7 degrees below the equator. We're the warmest area. And that just shows you that from the streams in the global streams of how they move, how did they end up in our waters? So these are big, big concerns of how their behaviors are changing. I 100% agree with you. And I know somebody asked here, how did you get involved in general for both of us? How did we get involved in this message? I think for me, and I would probably say for Gaelin too, it's like you see it firsthand. You hear about it. And I love how Oceanic Global has really kind of separated each issue, whether acidity or what, and detailed information with statistics of stuff that I didn't know. I really learned a lot from it. And so I'm happy to post it because I want people to be aware that this is serious and it's going to grow. And I've seen it with my own eyes like you have. This glacier story is crazy. When you really witness it firsthand, it hits home in a different way, and then it motivates you. So that's what motivated me to realize I can do good with my channel to over 800,000 followers and let them know that, there is something we can do, and we do need to be more sustainable and, take your water bottles with you instead of throwing it because it'll end up somewhere. And to realize that, like electric cars are probably better. You need to consider that. You need to consider separating your trash. They're all little steps, and but it's at least in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And for me, it was certainly witnessing firsthand when I was in graduate school. Well, throughout, but really in graduate school, and I did my graduate work on bluefin tuna, and I was watching their populations decline. And I really decided I needed to have more of an impact through storytelling so that I could reach a broader audience than an academic paper would. So that's when I took that step back, and then I started going to lots of different places and telling a lot of different stories that all really boiled it down to we need to all care. And then I think it gets to education. So whatever your platform is, and figuring out the best way that you can communicate. And I know you do a great job with your Instagram and all of your blogging, and you've got a huge following. So it's wonderful. And then I try to make films and write and photograph and use whatever. And I do a lot of talks with kids and things like that. And I think Oceanic Global does a fantastic job with their education and giving people the proper tools that are easy and tangible to sort of implement into your day-to-day. And then we can sort of conquer the bigger problems at hand, but we really need to start, individually. So I know we're nearing the end of our time, which I can't believe it's gone so quickly.
I know. We have so much more to say.
I know. Well, we'll just have to do it again. I'm sure that we could talk to our friends at Oceanic Global so that we can continue this conversation in the future. But I know that, this has been great to chat with you, another like-minded person. And if there was a takeaway, what do you think that would be from this conversation for you that you want people to leave with?
I would love to let you guys know that climate change is real, and it's happening much faster than I thought it was happening. I can only speak for myself. And it is really a serious problem that we need a solution to. We need to all kind of get together and find something that you do, whatever makes you feel good. If it's telling a friend, getting involved in a charity, helping Oceanic Global, reposting their messages about information to others so that we can educate the world, the global community, the children, because it is really there, as you can hear it from my stories, and growing up on an island from the beginning, and from Gaelin, even in the glacier, like it's here, and it's moving at a faster momentum than we thought, so we need to get involved.
Yes, no, and I completely second everything that you said, and I think it's very important everybody to take a stake in it and look at the earth and nature and everything going on as part of our everyday and part of what we love. And, really look at the ocean and nature as our neighbor and part of our community, as opposed to looking at it from afar through sort of a glass pane. It's important to think about that every day. So on that note, there's lots of great information at Oceanic Global's Instagram, on their website, and lots of really easy steps to start. And, and then Island Natalie. Follow her for great travel tips and awesome places, and live vicariously through her, especially as we're in lockdown and can't travel as much. And I'm at Gaelin Go Explore for more of a scientific perspective. Natalie, it's been such a pleasure to meet you and to chat with you, and I look forward to doing this again soon. So I'm going to...
It's been a pleasure meeting you too. We're ambassadors for this beautiful, beautiful profile, and to help them gain the right traction. And have a lovely weekend. Bye, you guys.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Bye.